Today is May 3rd. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It's a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, out of the core text, we're going to be reading Chapter 3, More About Alcoholism, pages 35 and 36. And we are going to be giving a new personal story in the They Stopped in Time section. Story number 11, Flooded with Feeling, pages 369 through 371. And out of the 12 and 12, we're going to continue our journey, begin our journey of tradition number 2, page 132. So with all that, my friends, hope you're doing well today. Life is good. We've been given a brand new set of 24 hours. And, hey, it's up to us who we decide to be today. Just grateful to be sober. So, that's why I'm here. Let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, my friends, so out of the Big Book, again, we are journeying through more about alcoholism again. And yesterday, one of the last lines we read was, we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking. For obviously, this is the crux of the problem. So we're going to talk about that, these mental states that usually come before a relapse. So here we go, page 35. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking? Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He's a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answer that we had found. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. We knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he went on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection. Yet he got drunk again. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened, and this is the story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I had felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they had a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I'd get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I'd been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months that I was sober. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still, no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put just an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed that I was not being any too smart, but I felt reassured that I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into the milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. All right, we'll stop here in the cortex. We'll come back to this in just a second. All right, we're moving on to They Stopped in Time. That is the second part of our testimonies here. Story number 11, Flooded with Feeling. This is on page 369. We're going to be reading 369 through 371. Flooded with Feeling. When a barrier to God collapsed, this self-described agnostic was at step 3. When I first came to AA, I thought everyone had drunk more than I had, that everybody had gotten into more trouble. But I kept coming to meetings, and after a while, I began to hear the beginnings of their stories. I came to realize that I was on the same road. I just hadn't gone as far. Yet. I had my first drink in my senior year of high school. That first night, I slipped out of the window so that my parents wouldn't hear me leave. There were 4 of us, and we only brought 4 bottles of home brew. I never made that mistake again. The next week, a bunch of us went camping, and we brought cases of beer. We finished it all. The others drank a lot too, but I was the one who woke up in the middle of the night and started wandering around the countryside by the light of the moon. I was the one who walked for miles searching for something. I know now what I was looking for. Unlike the rest of them, I wanted another drink. I had a great time that summer between high school and college. It revolved around drinking. Drinking at football, drinking and hunting, drinking and playing pool, drinking and driving. Nothing really bad happened. But it could have. I nearly got arrested. A friend just missed being shot. The car I was riding in stopped just before it crashed. I don't think most moderate social drinkers remember so clearly the night that they had their first drink. I'm sure that very few of them make that date into an annual celebration by getting as drunk as possible. It was in my second year of drinking that I started saying that if you can feel your face, you're not drunk enough. In my third year, I drank homemade peach wine, and when it was gone, I had some whiskey. That night, I vomited in a blackout. Soon, I found that I didn't get as sick on vodka. Drinking vodka was like something out of science fiction. I could be someplace in one moment and instantly transported to somewhere else in the next. I could never seem to find that happy balance. I remember going to a party. I started drinking and suddenly I could talk to anybody. I was having a lot of fun. But I kept on drinking. Soon I could barely walk. A friend drove me home that night, but I sometimes drove a car when I was too drunk to walk. I became a teacher and didn't drink too often for a while. When I did drink, I almost always got drunk. The teachers would get together a couple times a year for a poker party. I usually didn't drink anything, but one time I did, and I made a fool of myself. I decided that drinking just wasn't fun anymore. I quit. My cure for drinking was isolation. I would get up, go to work, come home, watch TV, and go to bed. It got to the point where I couldn't remember anything good that ever happened. I couldn't imagine anything good ever happening in the future. Life had shrunk down to an endless, awful now. The depression had come so bad that only medical treatment kept me from killing myself. After 7 months, the doctor took me off the medication. I wasn't suicidal, but I wasn't very happy either. A new teacher came to my school, and I invited myself over to her place for a drink. I remember telling her, as I lifted the glass, that this might not be such a great idea, but I believe it's worth the risk. As casually as that, I began drinking again. At the winter break, she went to visit her boyfriend, and I was alone again. 2 days before Christmas, I went to a party. I wasn't going to drink because I had driven there and I knew that drinking and driving was a bad idea for me. I wasn't feeling particularly good or bad, just a little uncomfortable because I didn't know most of the people there. I was sitting on the couch one minute and up drinking a glass of wine the next. There was no conscious premeditation at all. This is the point when many people say, and I went on drinking for 10 more years. Instead, an odd thing happened. A few days later, a teacher came up to me at work and said that she was an alcoholic and that she was going to AA. She'd never seen me drink, so I don't know what made her do that. The next day, I asked her how often she went to the meetings. Once a week? I asked. No. She said that she'd been going nearly every day for almost 6 months. That seemed a little extreme, but I thought that maybe if I went to a meeting with her, it might help her out. Besides, I was lonely. Halfway through the meeting, I had the strangest idea. People were introducing themselves as alcoholics, and I had an urge to do the same. Okay, some great stuff here. I can definitely relate to a lot of things that have been shared. I'd love to come back to this in just a sec too. All right, my friends, so out of the 12 and 12, we are beginning tradition number 2, which is, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. Where does AA get its direction? Who runs it? This too is a puzzler for every friend and newcomer. When told that our society has no president having authority to govern it, no treasurer who can compel the payment of any dues, no board of directors who can cast an erring member into outer darkness, when indeed no AA can give another a directive and enforce obedience, our friends gasp and explain, this simply can't be. There must be an angle somewhere. These practical folk then read tradition 2 and learn that the sole authority in AA is a loving God as he may express himself in the group conscience. They dubiously ask an experienced AA member if this really works. The member, saying to all appearances, immediately answers, yeah, it definitely does. The friends mutter that this looks vague, nebulous, and pretty naive to them. Then they commence to watch us with speculative eyes, pick up a fragment of AA history, and soon have the solid facts. What are these facts of AA life which has brought us to this apparently impractical principle? John Doe, a good AA, moves, let us say, to Middletown, USA. Alone now, he reflects that he may not be able to stay sober, or even alive, unless he passes on to another alcoholic what was so freely given to him. He feels a spiritual and ethical compulsion because hundreds may be suffering within reach of his help. Then too he misses his home group. He needs other alcoholics as much as they need him. He visits preachers, doctors, editors, policemen, and bartenders, with the result that Middletown now has a group, and he is the founder. Okay, so they're kind of going through a little demonstration here. It does seem so vague, right? Our group purpose, there's only one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in the group conscience. How does he do that? Well, this chapter is going to kind of go into more detail with that soon. So stay tuned for that on page 133 tomorrow. As far as more about alcoholism goes, you see where the insanity for poor Jim goes. We've talked about this a few times. Anytime you see italics in the big book, it was expensive for the first printing to do that. So for them to do that and make it stand out, they were trying to make a point. And it was worth the price to do it. And we see the italics begin when he starts to pour the ounce of whiskey in his milk. You know, this is something that we see the insanity, the addiction kicking in here. You know, poor guy's about to lose his family. And yet here he is, you know, in this one of his favorite restaurants. He'd been here many times before sober, and all of a sudden, he gets that desire to drink. And then he's off to the races as soon as that alcohol enters his body. And then going to our friend real quick in the personal stories, I can totally relate to some of the things he's already said. But you know, the thing that stands out to me the most is something's compelling him to go to the meeting. Something's compelling him to go to the meeting. I have a feeling I know what that is, but he doesn't just go to his friend's meeting, you know, out of support for his friend. He decides to share. And sometimes, you know, you just feel that nudge to do something, and you wonder where that comes from. And I don't want to speculate too much. I guess I'll let you all decide for yourselves, but I definitely see the God of my understanding working in our friend's life here. And it's very encouraging to see. And if you are sober today, my friends, you are very encouraging to see. And I'm sure that those who love you are very proud of you. You know, I actually went to a men's conference at my church this weekend, and it was powerful. And one of the speakers was a recovering alcoholic. And he and I were talking a little bit after the meeting, and I was kind of sharing a little bit of my story. He was sharing a little bit of his. And he looked me in the eye and he said, "Congratulations." He looked me in the eye and he said, "The world needs you." And I'd like to pass that forward to you, listening right here, right now, May 3rd, 2024. If you're sober today, that is wonderful. Keep at it, because today, the world needs you. And I'll end with that. Guys, I don't speak on behalf of AA, NA, Al-Anon, any other sect, denomination, or group. I am just a friend in recovery, and it truly is an honor to be here. If we are given another set of 24 hours, I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.